Hello and welcome to one and all. So we'll continue with the planning. In the previous class, I explained to you what is the meaning of planning. That is, the central planning authority fixes a certain target, adopts a strategy, and within the specific period of time, those targets have to be achieved by the country. And we have also seen what are all the various types of planning. Okay. Now we will move on to the next topic. That is the importance of planning. Now, importance of planning, you can understand. So imagine a country without any central planning authority. Okay, that is everything is people on their own, they are making all those decisions. And compare it with the country which is having a dedicated or a planning authority which is entrusted the responsibility of allotting all the resources. Then you can understand that what is the importance of planning for the economic development of a particular country. Of course, there are so many capitalistic countries without the concept of planning, they have achieved the economic development greatly, rapidly, no doubt about it. But then it is not possible for every country to achieve that kind of economic development without a certain base, without some kind of planning. Okay, so let us check out what could be the importances of planning. So most first and foremost, the resources of the country will not be wasted. So the resources will be properly allotted. So without any wasted, because somebody is there to say that only this much resources, this area, this sector has to be developed. So this much resources only you can use, isn't it? So without any wastage of resources, see for example, if it is a welfare motive, then the resources will be allotted for the to develop the or increase the welfare of the general public. But at the same, if it is not done like that, then any kind of commodity can be produced, any kind of service can be rendered, which might not promote the welfare of the citizens of the country. So if the resources are directed, allotted in that way, that means we're wasting the resources. So resources are properly allotted without any wastage. Then the next importance what we can see is, isn't it? So the development of all the three sectors can be obtained in an organized manner. So how this is possible? What is the connection here? Because if there is a planning authority, of course, no country can develop all the three sectors simultaneously. But in spite of the fact that all the three sectors have to be developed. So if the one plan, if the planning authority is concentrating on the development of agriculture, next plan it can concentrate on the development of the secondary sector and still further the tertiary sector. So all the three sectors can be over a period of time, all the three sectors will be able to develop on their own in a proper and in an organized way. Okay. So if you are concentrating on agriculture, for example, initially, what are all the requirements to develop the agriculture? So all those will be provided within the specific period of time. So once that is done, then agriculture can develop on its own. The next period, the planning authority can concentrate on development of industries. So again, what are all the requirements to develop the industries? How much should be the budget? What should be the technology? So what should be the foreign collaboration? So all those things can be devised, and still further they can move on to the next sector, isn't it? So that is, it can be done in an organized way. Okay, then the next one, social gain or welfare motive. This precedes the profit motive, isn't it? Social gain or welfare motive is given importance. So if it is left without any planning process, without any planning authority responsible for implementing the planning process policies in the country, so nobody will worry about the welfare motive of the country, social goals. So maximum social welfare will be the main objective of a planning authority. So that can be achieved with the planning. And next one, balanced regional development. So balanced regional development, the planning authority will see to it that all the areas are developed according to their potentiality. It is not that only one area is developed, continuously keeps on developing because of its advantages. So the planning authority will see to it that other area is also developing over a period of time. Okay, so there will be lesser regional disparities in the country. Then we have countries like India. We have seen all these problems, isn't it? Problems of inequalities. We have the problems of poverty. We have the problems of unemployment. So how all these can be solved? Only if there is a planning in the country by a responsible entity, then this kind of all these kinds of problems will be addressed, isn't it? Or better tackled than without planning. Because in other words, if without planning, no one will be responsible, take the responsibility of tackling all these problems. Then the next one is a planned economy is more, I mean, planned economy can adjust quickly to the changing and unpredictable condition. How the unpredictable conditions happen? Most of the capitalistic system, they are all affected. There won't be stability there because they depend on market mechanism, isn't it? So the market mechanism is always prone to business cycles. There will always be ups and downs in businesses. There will be always be ups and downs in the prices of the goods and services. The general price level keep on moving up and down. So it will be very unpredictable conditions in the if you are totally depending upon the market mechanism. But whereas if you are with a planned economy, the government or the any authority will interfere, will not allow the economy to the general price level to go so high that it leads to inflation, or it will not allow the general price level to come so low that it will lead to deflation. So recent examples of recession and all in US, India and China escaped from that recession because we are all having that planned economies in our countries. Okay, so and like that any situation arises because throughout the period, the planning is taken for a certain period of time. It can be 1 year, it can be 3 years, it can be 5 years, it can be 7 years. But within that 5 years, any untoward incident can happen within that period of time. The beginning of the plan, the planning authority is fixing the targets. After the end of the 5 year period, it is evaluating the whatever it has, evaluating the achievements. But within the due course, so many untoward incidents might happen, isn't it? It can be a war, it can be a drought conditions. So it can be anything, any conditions might arise within the course of that period. So if it is a planned authority, it can easily adjust to the change. Immediately that focus can shift from whatever the immediate requirement. So the material money can be diverted easily. But if it is without planning, if it is in the hands of a private sector, that cannot be done so easily. Okay, so all said and done, a planned economy seems to be in a better position than an unplanned economy. Okay, then let us move on to uh, what is the how to what are all the major objectives of Indian 5 year plans, and let us review the progress or the achievements made by the Indian planning system. Okay, Indian Planning Commission. So first, let us see the what are all the major objectives of under different plans. Okay, that is between uh, first plan to 11th plan. So plans, plan period, and major objectives. So first plan 1951 to 56. So the first important the government gave was, first plan was an agriculture plan, agriculture and irrigation development, because majority of the farmers, they were depending upon only on rainfall, so which is very erratic. So agriculture and irrigation development were focused in the first plan. So all those multi-purpose projects, Nagarjuna Sagar Dam, Bakranagar, like this, isn't it? All those major multi-purpose irrigation projects, all those were started during that period of time. Then second plan 1956 to 61, development of large scale industries. So since first plan concentrated on agriculture, as I mentioned, it is not possible to concentrate on all the three sectors simultaneously. So first plan government gave importance to agriculture, and second plan industries. That too, the government concentrated on large scale industries, because large scale industries that will provide a required foundation for the economy. So that was the reason the government concentrated on the development of large scale industries. Okay, now moving on to third plan 1961 to 66, self sufficiency in food grains, sorry, self sufficiency in food grains production, because uh, we had uh, we had to import, severe economic crisis during this period of time. We had to import food grains from the other countries. That is not nice, isn't it? So government gave importance to, again focus shifted back to agriculture. The government wanted to attain, didn't want to depend on other countries for food grains. Okay, that is very dangerous, isn't it? So wanted to give importance to self sufficiency in food grains. Then moving on to fourth plan 1969 to 74. So 3 years there was, because of the economic crisis, there was a gap year, 66 to 69 annual plans. So fourth plan, steady growth, because of that all those economic crises happened in between, war and drought conditions, the economy was not stable. So finally when the fourth plan started in 1969, the focus was to have a steady growth and self reliance, don't want to depend on other countries, and eradication of poverty, which is commonly known as Garibi. So this is a famous slogan uh, coined by Srimati Indira Gandhi. So that's why we have seen, isn't it? All the employment and poverty eradication of programs started from this period of time. So fifth one, 1974 to, actually 1974 to 70, it ended in 1978 because of the change of government. Again, continuation, poverty eradication and self-reliance. And sixth plan, 1980 to 85, poverty eradication through providing gainful employment. We have seen the other day, whatever the employment programs which the government started during the fourth five-year plan, it was very temporary. So only from the sixth plan, the government started more serious employment generation program. So that's what poverty eradication, in order to remove poverty. Same thing, isn't it? So poverty eradication through providing gainful employment. Okay. Next, moving on to seventh plan. So seventh plan, the period 1985 to 1990. So increase in food grain production. So again, the focus is still on, because of the eradication of poverty, self-sufficiency in food grains. So because of that, again, increase in food grain production and productivity. And eighth plan, the government slightly changed the strategy in 1992 to 97, human resource development. So by this time, India was, almost reached the self-sufficient. Green revolution and all were introduced in our country, 1965-66. And by this time, any drought condition or anything, India was able to tackle on our own without depending upon the foreign assistance. And so the focus slightly shifted to development of human resources in the country. Okay. And by that time, the population of the country also increased tremendously. So the available labor resources in the country should be utilized properly. So that's why the focus, the objective was to develop the human resources in the country. And then the ninth plan, 1997 to 2002. So equality, economic growth with social justice. Social justice with same meaning, equality, like equal distribution of income and wealth in the country. So economic growth also given importance. At the same time, that should be with social justice, because that was the time the new economic reforms were introduced. The inequalities in the country widened. So the focus was equality, economic growth with social justice. Economic reforms was introduced because the country has to develop, isn't it? Economic growth is a must. So then 2000, continuation of the same thing, equality, the 10th plan, equality, social justice, enhancement in the quality of human resources. So we have seen, isn't it, empower the poverty, and later after 2000, the government started the two-pronged strategy, empowerment of people with skill formation, education, health, isn't it? So all these are in order to increase the quality of human resource in the country. And 11th plan, they had a main objective of something called as inclusive growth. So inclusive growth, including the even the poorer sections of the population. In the by the time this time, the national income of the country increased by the growth rate was around 8%, 9%, and all we reached. So, but still the poorer sections were not benefiting that much. So that's why the inclusive growth in the benefits of national income should reach even to the poorer sections of the population. So that was the target in this 11th plan. And then 2012 to 2017, faster, sustainable, and more inclusive growth. So inclusive growth is continuing. More and more people should be included, and sustainable because of that environmental uh, global warming happening all over the world. So sustainable environmental protection was also. So economic development should take place in such a way that it is not destroying the quality of environment. And apart from that, faster economic growth and more inclusive growth. See, if there is an environmental degradation, the first people will be affected, most vulnerable sections or the poorest sections of the population. So they will not be included in the economic growth. So that's why and apart from that, that global warming problem all over the world. So sustainable development and more inclusive economic growth. So these were all the major objectives of the Indian 5-year plan. Now let us review to what extent we have achieved. Not this, it's specifically based on the broad objectives of Indian family. See, there are certain broad objectives like economic growth, rise in the national income, rise in along with the increase in agriculture, industries, etc. To what extent we have attained the self-reliance, to what extent we have attained the inclusive growth. So like that, the broad objectives, to what extent we have achieved. So let us check on that. So that is review of 5-year plans. So you all know planning started in 1951 and This was the first plan, and 2012 to 2017. This is the 12th plan. Okay. So between this period, what all we have? So first target, economic growth. To what extent? Economic growth in the sense that rise in the national income of the country, growth rate of national income in the country. So to what extent we have achieved this target? So basically, so the national income between 1951 to 1981, how much it has increased? 3.5% per annum. And when you talk about 1951 to 2017, over this entire period, on an average, the national income of the country increased 4.5% per annum. Okay, only 1951 to 1981, 3.5% per annum. From 1951 to 2000, the last 2017, up to that, up to the 12th plan, on an average, it was increasing at the rate of 4.5% per annum. But of course, it's not a very great thing. But when you compare before independence, so compared to before independence, it was only 1% per annum. So compared to that, this 3.5% or 4.5% is better, isn't it? Okay, that is about the national income. Next, moving on to the agriculture. To what extent the agricultural sector growth rate increased? So agriculture, same period, was increased to 2% to 3% per annum. But when you compare before independence, it was increasing only to the extent of 0.3% per annum. Okay. So again, so you can put this is okay. National income to a certain extent we have improved. Agriculture also, if you compare it, even though the growth rate is not that much, at least when you compare it to before independence, there is a growth rate in agriculture. And don't forget, India is self-sufficient in food grains. In spite of our teeming million population in our country, we are not depending upon other countries for our food grain consumption. So that is an achievement. So industry, it was approximately the rate of growth is 6% to 8%. So government, uh, basically the government wanted the industry to grow at the rate of 8% per annum, but it was hovering around ranging between 6% to 8%. But this also before independence, the growth rate in industry was only 3% to 4%. And also the structure of, there was a tremendous change in the, structural transformation in the industry. We were able to develop most of the large scale industries, capital intensive industries on our own without any dependence upon the foreign countries. But during the British period, this 3% to 4%, we did not have a balanced industrial structure. We had only a couple of one or two large scale industries, that too catering to the consumer goods industries, and we had a couple of small scale industries. So in balanced industrial structure, large scale industries, medium scale industries, small scale industries, consumer goods industries, capital goods industries, everything should be there, then only is a balanced industrial structure. We did not have that kind of industrial development. We had a lopsided industrial development during the British period before independence, but that was rectified after independence. Our growth rate also increased, and most of the capital goods industries we were able to produce on our own without depending upon the foreign countries. And our industrial goods, there was a tremendous diversification in the industries, different varieties of goods, different varieties of engineering goods, capital goods, electronics, electricity generation. So many different types of goods we were able to manufacture on our own without any assistance from the foreign countries. Okay, so industrial development also, it's not bad. And moving on to the service sector, I need not have to mention, there's a, with the current what you say, contribution made by the service sector to the GDP, or now we are calling it as a GVA, you know that it's a tremendous achievement. So service sector, we can mention that there is a tremendous growth, considering the fact that nearly 54.15% to the GVA. This is the as per 2018-19. So this indicates there is a structural transformation happening in the country. So as far as this one, let's put a tick mark. Okay, economic growth we are reviewing actually. So when looking at all these indicators, there is a reasonable achievement regarding that economic growth. Okay, now let's move on to the next objective, the second one, that is where we stand in self-reliance. So another major objective of Indian 5-year plan is we should have the achievement of self-reliance. Okay, so for the fourth plan, basically, just now we checked the major objectives. Actually, the fourth plan, the government had twin objectives. So twin objectives, one is growth with stability, and the second one, achievement of self-reliance. So where do we stand now? Just now I mentioned we are self-sufficient in food grains and self-sufficient in, we are self-reliant in capital equipment. So regarding the objective, so where we stand here, as far as the food grain is concerned, we are self-sufficient in food grains. In food grains production. Once upon a time, we were importing food grains from the 1960s economic crisis I mentioned, isn't it? So that time we had to depend on other countries. But now, even if there is any drought condition or anything like that, also we had accumulated sufficient amount of buffer stock. So we were able to manage without importing food grains from the other countries. Remember, this in spite of having the being the second most populated country in the world. So, and then advancement towards self-reliant in capital equipment. So what is the difference between self-sufficiency and self-reliant? Self-sufficiency, totally you're depending on yourself only without any foreign assistance, that we have achieved in food grains. Self-reliant in capital equipment in the sense that we are not self-sufficient in capital equipment. Still, we need to import capital equipment from the other countries, but then in order to pay for that capital import of that capital equipment, we are earning sufficient amount of exports. Through exports, we are earning sufficient amount of foreign exchange reserves. So through that, we are able to pay for our import of capital equipment. So we are able to import all the advanced capital equipment and technology. So that is, we also achieved the self-reliance towards capital equipment. So you can put a tick mark in this also. So to a certain extent, the major areas we have attained that self-reliance objective. Okay, then the next objective is, the third one is balance. Another major objective of Indian 5-year planning is to achieve balanced regional development. That is, there should not be any regional disparities. It is like one area is developed, another area is not developed. So that is the another objective. There should be equality. So there were several programs initiated by the government. So several programs initiated by the government to achieve this balanced regional development. Some of the programs initiated by the government are, so there is something called as transfer of funds from the center to the states after taking into account extent of backwardness. See, normally in the budget allocation every year, the central government allots to each and every state. There is a standard budget allocation from the central government to each and every state government every year. Okay. But apart from that, if any particular state is having more areas which are coming under the category of backward, they're not that developed. So that particular state will receive extra financial assistance from the central government. That is the transfer of funds. So if the more backward areas are there in a particular state, extra funds are given by the central government to the state government, so that those regions will also develop. So that is being initiated by the government. And this we have already seen. Special area development program, the desert development program, drought prone area program, we have seen, isn't it? So though all those are backward areas, so some, in order to develop those areas, some programs have been designed. Okay, so special area development programs. And apart from that, promoting private investment. So normally the private sector, they will not come forward to establish their business activities in the backward area. They will invest only urban bias in private investment, we have seen, isn't it? So they will invest only in the areas where it is quite forward. I mean, infrastructural facilities, all those. So the government was indirectly persuading the private sector to invest in the backward area by giving them tax concessions and other benefits, other whatever the subsidies, concessions. So I mean, electricity subsidy, land subsidy, like that, subsidies are given, like the tax concessions are given, tax holidays were given. So like that, indirectly the government was persuading the private sector to invest in the backward area. But then unfortunately this we could not achieve, even though initially it started with a good measure. Even when the government started the second 5-year plan, the industrial objectives and industrialization was the objective in the second 5-year plan. So the government itself started the major industries in the backward areas like Odisha, Bihar, like that, all those backward areas. But then they encourage the private sector to start the industries. But then what happened after the economic reforms? Again, that focus shifted. So now, after the economic reform, in fact the regional disparities are widened now. So as far as balanced regional development is concerned, we have not achieved. I mean, the review is it is not achieved. Okay, so still some more points are there to be reviewed. Some more objectives are there to be reviewed. So which I'll continue with my next class. Hope you people are understanding the concept. Okay, so if you find this video useful, please like, share and subscribe, and also don't fail to mention your suggestions or comments in the doubts in the comment box. Okay, so until my next video, next class, take care. Bye bye.